I am the private physician of a domineering CEO. On a chaotic night, we crossed a line. When he woke up, he remembered nothing, so I pretended nothing had ever happened. When I arrived at Ronan's residence, the old butler was already waiting at the door. "Dr. Lee, you're finally here," he said. "The young master has been waiting for you for a long time." I gave an awkward laugh. "Young master?" That form of address really felt ancient. "Did you give him his medication?" I asked on the phone. Ronan's condition had sounded especially bad. The butler said nothing, merely leading the way. The living room was empty. He took me straight upstairs to Ronan's bedroom. He knocked lightly on the door. "Young master, Dr. Lee has arrived." After that, he turned and went back downstairs, his movements surprisingly nimble. The door opened, light from the hallway fell across Ronan's flushed face. In a hoarse voice, he asked, "Why did you come so late?" I asked. "Are you okay?" he murmured, barely above a whisper. "No." The next second, bang. The door slammed shut behind me. When I opened my eyes again, I was staring at an unfamiliar warm white ceiling. This was Ronan's bedroom. Memories from last night surged back like a tide. As I hurriedly pulled myself together, I cursed Ronan under my breath. The door opened and closed softly. I bolted downstairs, running straight into the butler, the one who had vanished all night. I clapped a hand over his mouth, then remembered he was an accomplice from last night. I shot him a resentful glare and warned him in a low voice, "Don't say I was here, understand?" He blinked. I let go. Then I crouched low and sprinted out of the villa, fled like a thief, and hailed a taxi straight home. Saving lives, was this really how it was supposed to work? Ronan and I were supposed to be nothing more than a clean, professional relationship, client and service provider. He had an illness, I had the medicine. Simple, pure, and yet after one night's sleep, everything had fallen apart. A momentary lapse wasn't such a big deal, but losing my job, that would be a real, irreversible disaster. Boss Anderson was wealthy, undemanding, and generous with benefits. A boss like that was a rare treasure. I could practically see my high salary and the sports car I was about to buy flapping away, disappearing into thin air. I'd have straight into the bathtub, trying to calm myself down. Calm down. What a joke. Where were my hands? Why didn't I push him away? Where was my mouth? Why didn't I refuse? He was already in that state last night. He probably couldn't even remember the censored fragments in his head, let alone remember me. Thinking it through like that, my unemployment crisis suddenly vanished. Over the next half-month, Ronan behaved as if nothing had happened. The moment he sent a single word uncomfortable on WeChat, I'd rush over immediately, attending to him in every possible way. The moment I stepped inside, the butler would already have set out cooling herbal soup, along with all kinds of snacks and pastries. He really was a good boss and an easy patient to care for. I reminded him of all the precautions, what he should do, what he shouldn't, what he should eat more of, what he needed to avoid. Ronan sat there, obedient as a model student, listening attentively in class, as if he might clasp his hands behind his back at any moment. As for that night, he never mentioned it once. His expression was so open, so natural, it was as if nothing had ever happened. But it had happened. Ronan didn't remember, but I did. Every time I got close, my thoughts drifted back to that night. And the worst part was that he was completely unaware. Several times when I went over, I caught him fresh out of the shower, walking out with nothing but a towel around his waist. Helpless, I said, "Could you maybe get dressed before coming out?" Ronan frowned slightly. "Why? You never said that before. Before. We were just employer and employee." Later, Ronan started dressing properly in advance. But it didn't help. I knew exactly what lay beneath the fabric. I could sketch the clean lines of his muscles with my eyes closed. I was finished, completely finished. My old feelings had been like roast duck behind a shop window. One glance, then I'd look away, pat my wallet, able to restrain myself. But now the duck had been bitten into. Crispy skin, tender meat, the flavor lingered on my lips and teeth every time I passed that window again. My feet refused to listen. All I wanted was to devour the rest, bones and all. I snapped my medical case shut and avoided looking at him. "Remember to take your medicine. I'm heading out." The butler tried to stop me. "Why not stay and eat before you go? We made your favorite dishes today." I shook my head like a rattle drum. Stay. What I wanted to eat wasn't food. Stepping outside, the night wind hit my face, and my breathing finally eased. At the intersection, red traffic lights blurred into a sea of crimson. When I closed my eyes, my mind was filled with those memories. On impulse, I flagged down a taxi. Rainbow Bar. It was a well-known gay bar on North Street. I'd heard of it for ages, but never gone. To be honest, My desire for Ronan came down to one thing: my life had been too dull. Even the smallest ripple could knock me flat. I needed to make my life richer. Once there were enough distractions, that insignificant little incident with Ronan would naturally stop mattering, so to the bar, to find some fun. Rainbow Bar truly lived up to its reputation. The air was thick with the chill of melting ice, the faint bitterness of spent tobacco, and hormones so dense they felt ready to explode. This was way too stimulating. Here alone, a fashionably dressed boy walked up to me. Lips red, teeth white, beautiful really. Unfortunately, not my type. I lied and said I was meeting someone, then walked straight toward the bar. I wanted the strongest drink, and a date with the most exciting man in the room. I drank quite a bit, but not a single exciting man appeared. None of them were any good. None of them were as good as Ronan. Ronan was tall, well-proportioned, not too thin, not too heavy, just right. The more I drank, the clearer Ronan became in my mind. I shook my head, trying to shake him off. Instead, the swaying figures in the distance began to blur. That was when someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around, and when I saw his face, "What are you doing here?" I remembered the line the guy earlier had used on me and repeated it on impulse. "You here alone too?" It was Jason, Ronan's friend and business partner. He glanced round and asked, "You came by yourself? Where's Ronan?" I frowned. What did that have to do with him? "I'm here to have fun. Coming to a bar to have fun." Jason gave me a thumbs up. "You're impressive." The sarcastic tone grated on my nerves. I lunged forward and grabbed his face with both hands, using all the strength my drunkenness gave me. "Shut up, you're annoying." Jason slapped my hands away, then lightly patted my cheek. "Ronan has a first love," he said, "his high school classmate. Did you know that?" I didn't. My fingers froze in midair. Feigning casual curiosity, I asked, and then Jason said, "That person abandoned him." "What do you mean?" "Abandoned?" My words came faster without me realizing it. Did they break up? Not exactly. Their spark was smothered before it could become anything real. So, not a breakup, but didn't that person already give him up? The alcohol surged back up. My throat tightened. "Why are you telling me this?" I demanded. "Whether they broke up or not, what does it have to do with me?" Jason replied calmly, "Maybe I'm just kind-hearted. I thought I should give you a heads up." I shook my head and shouted, "I don't need it." Then the alcohol rushed straight to my temples. My vision went black, and I pitched forward. Jason caught me with one hand and dialed the number. "Hello." He's still a little conscious. He glanced at me and snorted. "Actually, no, he's completely out." The moment cold water splashed onto my face, I woke up, but my body was limp. Like overcooked noodles, someone supported me, shoved me into a car, then dumped me into a bathroom. When I opened my eyes again, I was wearing clean pajamas, lying on the bed in a guest room. Ronan stood by the bed, rolling up his sleeves. The cuffs were damp. Jason's words replayed in my head automatically. "Ronan has a first love. That person abandoned him." I sat up and wrapped my arms around him. Ronan pressed a hand to my shoulder. "You're drunk." I fell back onto the pillow and heard myself say, drunk." The next day, light leaking through the curtains stabbed straight into my temples. My throat was so dry it felt like I'd swallowed an entire dessert. Fragments of last night surfaced bit by bit. The bar, the bathroom, that clumsy hug. I sat up, scalp tingling. The door opened. Ronan walked in. "You're awake. Go wash up and come downstairs for breakfast." I answered softly, "Okay." I clenched the bedsheet suddenly, my voice trembling. "Ronan." His hand paused on the doorknob. He turned back to look at me. Jason's words, "Maybe I'm just kind-hearted," exploded in my ears. Reason returned, and all my strength drained away. My shoulders slumped. "About last night." "I'm sorry." He was silent for 2 seconds. Then his gaze passed over me calmly. "Don't drink that much again." With that, he left. At the dining table, the butler pushed a bowl of porridge toward me. Unable to stop himself from nagging, "How could you drink so much?" I smiled awkwardly, stirring the spoon in the bowl. After forcing down a few mouthfuls, I couldn't eat any more. "Only that much." The butler frowned when I set the spoon down. I shook my head. "I really can't." He kept trying, just the small bowl, across from me. Ronan set his chopsticks down with a sharp clack. His voice was cold enough to freeze the air. "Finish it. No wasting food." I lowered my head and forced myself to finish the porridge, then made an excuse and left. Walking down the street, I still couldn't figure it out. The first time, I was the one who got slept with, then I ran. This time, I was the one who forcefully kissed Ronan, and I ran again. Why was it always me running? Was it just because it was Ronan's house? I let out a mocking laugh. Even if it hadn't been his house, He still wouldn't have run. He was steady. The one with a guilty conscience was me. He said I was drunk. And drunk people, whatever they do doesn't count. He wanted to tell me that last night didn't count. That night before didn't count either. Whether he had a first love, whether they broke up, none of it had anything to do with me. Alcohol ruins things. Looks like I should quit drinking for the next 7 full days. Ronan didn't contact me at all. I stared at his pin chat on WeChat, completely blank. In my mind was an image of the termination notice from his assistant. Was Ronan really planning to fire me? If he did, so what? I had skills. I could thrive anywhere. But the thought of never seeing Ronan again made my chest tighten with discomfort. I irritably tossed my phone aside. Ding, the screen lit up. I grabbed it immediately. Ronan, get ready. Ronan, you're coming on a business trip with me tomorrow. This trip took us to a small island south of Guangzhou. The sky was a deep blue. The sand soft beneath our feet. Colorful fishing boats rested along the shore, and the sea breeze was gentle. The guest house wasn't large, only 2 bedrooms, but it was beautiful with a small courtyard. Open the gate, and the sea was right there. At night, you could hear the wind turning pages and the sound of waves. In short, it was the perfect place for a vacation, and Ronan really did act as if he were on one. Normally, he'd bring an assistant along on business trips. This time, it was just the 2 of us. I was puzzled. He said it was only a site inspection. No need to take up other employees' time. What a good boss. He couldn't bear to overwork his core staff, but he had no problem overworking me. Before 5 the next morning, he dragged me out to watch the sunrise. I followed him barefoot. The chill crept up from the sand through my soles, bracing and refreshing. Ronan wasn't much for talking, so I had to start the conversation. President Anderson, do you like the sea? He replied lightly, I do. I like it too. Conversation over. After sunrise, we took a ferry, fed pigeons, picked up seashells, and ate fresh sashimi. The sashimi dipped in wasabi was so good it made me squint my eyes. Unfortunately, Ronan's stomach couldn't handle it. Ronan suggested staying to watch the sunset before heading back. I had no objections. As the sun sank, the colors shifted from gold and red to deep crimson. Ronan suddenly asked, "Are you happy?" I froze, then nodded. Very, he smiled. His eyes rested on me, or perhaps passed straight through me, landing somewhere far away. For a moment, I couldn't even be sure he was really looking at me. In that instant, I thought of the little prince who watched 43 sunsets all by himself. And you? I couldn't help asking, "Are you happy?" Of course. His voice was so light it felt like it might scatter. With the wind, sunset glow, the gentlest thing, and also the cruelest. The weather by the sea was always unpredictable. It had been bright and clear in the morning. Now rain poured down without warning. One of Ronan's friends learned he was in Guangdong and called him away early that day. Ronan asked if I wanted to go. I refused. There was no reason for an employee to attend their boss's private gathering after closing the windows in the house. I went by his room to check on things. Sure enough, rain had blown inside. The table by the window was soaked, and the sea wind had flipped open a notebook on the desk. It was a diary. Reason told me to close the window and leave, but curiosity drove me to open it. Strictly speaking, it wasn't really a diary because the owner didn't write in it every day. March 21st, 2009, Mom. Today marks the 20th day since you left. Dad brought Aunt Lee home. She packed everything in the house that had anything to do with you into black garbage bags and threw them away. The roses in the yard had just started to sprout. She pulled them out as well. My good friend, my little dog, Arctos, was sent away. 2. May 21st, 2009, Aunt Linda was dismissed by Dad. Aunt Lee complained to him, saying that Aunt Linda spoiled me too much, that people like her couldn't be kept. I grabbed Aunt Linda and begged her not to leave. Her eyes reddened. She patted the back of my hand and said, "Grow up quickly." Later, I told Dad I wanted to live on campus. He agreed. As I flipped through Ronan's diary, it felt as though my heart were being clenched tightly by an invisible hand. He was like a child begging for candy, only to be pushed away every time, rejected until his hands were empty. Eventually, he shoved his hands into his pockets and decided he would never ask again. An absurd thought suddenly crossed my mind. If I could travel into this diary, if I could just hold him for a moment, shield a small version of him from wind and rain, that would be enough. Page after page, Ronan's pain repeated itself over and over for 6 long years until 2015. That was when his grandfather appeared. February 17th, 2015, Grandpa came back. He took back the shares Dad was holding. When Aunt Lee found out, she had a huge fight with Dad. Grandpa said I should move to another city, that with time, everything would get better. February 25, 2015. After transferring to a new school, the classmates' curiosity toward the new student was overwhelming. I was very good at dealing with things like this. I didn't respond. I didn't answer questions. Eventually, they lost interest and dispersed on their own. But there are always exceptions. That exception was my deskmate in the teacher's eyes. He was a problem student, not because he fought or caused trouble, but because he always slipped in through the back door. At the last second, once he arrived, he never listened in class. He would drop his head and fall asleep. His desk was stuffed with fantasy cultivation novels. He flipped through them after class, then continued sleeping once class started again. Yet his grades were passable except for English and subjects like Chinese that required memorization. He smiled at me and said he wanted to be friends. I asked him why. He said it was because I was good looking. How shallow. I told him I didn't need friends. His brows drooped. He looked at me pitifully, just like Arctos. Something softened in my chest. I told him I didn't make friends with underachievers. If he wanted to be friends with me, he had to listen in class. Focusing in class was practically a death sentence for him. I knew he couldn't do it, but he agreed. February 28, 2015. He was incredibly clingy. He wanted to do everything together. He really was just like Arctos. I asked if I could call him Arctos. He tilted his head, blinked once, and asked why. Even more like Arctos, because he reminded me so much of Arctos. I allowed him to ask me questions about his studies. March 16, 2015. I forgot to bring my stomach medicine when I left home that morning. Halfway through class, my stomach started acting up. I collapsed onto my desk. Unable to straighten my back from the pain, my deskmate said something to the teacher, then ran out before the teacher could even respond. When he came back, he was holding a cup of steaming ginger tea. No idea where he'd gotten it from. The consequence was that for the rest of the day, he had to stand next to the trash can and listen to class. No sleeping allowed, but he didn't care. He wasn't embarrassed at all. During the break, he deliberately came over to tell me from now on, he wouldn't keep novels in his desk anymore. I thought he was going to start studying seriously, so I asked him, "Then what will you put in there?" "Soda crackers," he said. "When you're hungry, you can eat them. They're good for your stomach." May 15, 2015. The monthly exam results came out today. My idiot deskmate had jumped more than 50 places in ranking. Most of our classmates found it unbelievable, but I knew he wasn't stupid. He was actually very smart. He just hadn't put in the effort before. As soon as the results were posted, he leaned in close, his eyes sparkling. "So, we count as friends now, right?" I turned my head away, pretending to look out the window. The sunlight warmed my face. "What? How can that be?" He panicked, spinning in place. He didn't see the smile at the corner of my mouth. May 26, 2015. The school was cracking down on early relationships. Students who got caught were called into the office for lectures. I glanced sideways at him. His eyelashes were criminally long. His gaze so clean it looked like he'd never done homework in his life. Suddenly, I wanted to tease him. I leaned over and whispered, "Actually, I like boys. Do you still want to be friends with me?" His face flushed all the way to his ears. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again, even revealing a pair of little bunny teeth. I laughed to myself. How could he be this dumb? A few days later, he handed me a letter. Given his personality, I thought it would be a letter ending our friendship. I opened it on the spot. When I saw the contents, I nearly fell off my chair. "I've liked you for a long time. Since you don't seem to mind, I'm going to start pursuing you." I never, in a million years, expected this outcome. This deskmate had to be the first love Jason mentioned at the bar, because in all of Ronan's diary, there was no second person who appeared with the identity of a classmate in Ronan's writing. He was wonderful, so wonderful it made me jealous. On one hand, I was moved by his words, happy for him on the other. That person's identity made my chest ache. I sighed, swallowed the sourness in my throat, and kept reading from Ronan's words. It was clear. He grew more and more tolerant, more and more indulgent toward this deskmate. July 15, 2018. Mom, today, I have two very important things to tell you. The first is that I got into my dream university. The second is that I'm in love with my deskmate Dennis. I know this road won't be easy, but this isn't a momentary impulse. We will hold onto each other's hands and walk forward together. Mom, be happy for me. Someone in this world is willing to love me again. My heart skipped a beat. I stared at the name Dennis on the page for a long, long time. I didn't believe coincidences like this could exist. Yet in my memory, none of the scenes he recorded, studying together, going to the seaside together, going to college together, existed at all. The seaside. My ears rang. The world fell silent. Weren't we at the seaside right now? Yesterday's Look in his eyes flashed through my mind. Sadness, confusion, nowhere to land, as if he were looking at a lover who would never return. The name he called when he was drunk that night was Dennis. The person he watched at the sea was Dennis. He hadn't forgotten that night when we crossed the line. He had simply mistaken the person and thought it unnecessary to say anything. So I was Dennis. And yet not Dennis. It felt as if my chest were split open by a heavy blow. The pain tearing straight through me, my first instinct was to close the diary, run out of the room, pretend I had seen nothing, resign, leave with dignity. But I kept reading. I wanted to know what could make Ronan this cruel enough to let an unsuspecting me become someone else's substitute. What followed were records of an interesting college life, a sweet romance. They studied together, found jobs together, even lived together. Even when troubles rose, they were softened by the presence of a lover. Every word was coated in a gentle glow until January 21st, 2023, New Year's Eve. That gentle glow was shattered by an accident. January 21st, 2023, a traffic accident made Dennis forget me. He remembered everything except me. I didn't know whether to blame the delivery rider who ran a red light, or Dennis, who insisted on going out to pick up a cake, or perhaps the one I should blame most was myself. Someone like me is simply too awful. That's why everyone leaves me. Mom is gone. Arctos is gone. Dad doesn't like me. After Grandpa passed away, Dennis was all I had. Now, he doesn't want me either. I told him we were lovers. He froze for 2 seconds. His eyes like a startled deer. Even his breathing cautious all day long. His resistance pushed me closer and closer to the abyss. By evening, I forced a smile and said, "I'm kidding. You're actually the family doctor I hired." He let out a breath of relief and believed me. By the time I reached this point, I no longer knew how to describe what I was feeling. If the person in this diary really was me, I would be completely at a loss. Every detail written here made me feel like a body hollowed out of its soul, as if I had to question whether I truly existed. And yet, I also wish it was me. I wish the person who lit up Ronan's world was me. I wish the one who received such grand, wholehearted love from Ronan was me. The diary continued. May 21st, 2023. Ever since Dennis lost his memory, I felt as though he might disappear at any moment. He didn't want to live in my house, so I demanded that he be on call whenever I needed him, to follow me on business trips as well. When he refused, I took advantage of his kindness and his love of money, offering him an outrageously high salary. I pretended to have stomach pains every few days. Still, I wasn't satisfied, watching my own lover every single day yet being able to do nothing at all. It was torture until that night. The next morning, before dawn even broke, he ran away. After that, he returned to the same guarded, resistant state as before. I tested him in every way I could. He avoided me every time. I regretted it, regretted giving in to momentary desire and pushing him even farther away. June 16th, 2023. In order to draw a clear line between us, he actually went to a gay bar. He would rather look for someone else than choose me. The moment I brought him home from that bar, a fierce possessiveness surged inside me. I wanted nothing more than to keep him close, to never let him leave my side again. That way, he wouldn't grow close to anyone else. He would belong to me completely. But I didn't dare do it. I couldn't bear to hurt him. I was afraid he would be unhappy. Even more afraid that he would leave me for good. July 15th, 2023. I brought him back to this island again. On the day we first confirmed our relationship, we came to the seaside, watched the sunrise and sunset, kissed beneath the fading glow of dusk. Today, we returned here once more. Yet now, it felt as if a thin veil lay between us. All that remained were polite exchanges. He was still the same, smiling whenever he saw the waves, saying the sea was the fairest thing in the world. Throw your worries into it, and they'd all be washed away. Life would be left with nothing but happiness. Sometimes I wonder someone as cheerful as Dennis, what troubles could he possibly have, if he truly had any? Perhaps they began the moment he met me. The sea isn't fair. It swept away his worries, along with his memories, and left me standing alone on the shore. Today is Dennis's birthday. After that kiss back then, he told me I was the best birthday gift heaven had ever given him. Today, I secretly prepared a birthday gift for him as well. I want to give him freedom, Dennis. From now on, I won't bind you to my side anymore. I hope you'll always be happy. The diary ended there. At the very bottom of the notebook, an old photograph was tucked away. Under the setting sun, two boys stood shoulder to shoulder, their eyes filled with light as they smiled. On the back of the photo, there was a line of small words, worn and blurred with time. Only by looking closely could one barely make out what it said. July 15th, 2018. Ronan, I want to be with you forever. That was my handwriting. Click. The door. Lock turned. My neck stiffened as I turned around. Ronan stood in the entryway. A small blue box clenched in his hand, his knuckles white. Why are you crying? There was a sigh in his voice. I shook my head and wiped my face. But the more I wiped, the more tears spilled out. He stepped closer. Did I scare you? He looked tense, weighing his words, figuring out how to tell yet another lie. Actually, I didn't wait for him to finish. I threw myself into his arms, burying all the words he hadn't said in his chest. Dennis has always had a way of making my heart ache for him. He doesn't have to say anything. Just standing there is enough for me to stop caring about everything else. All I want is to hold him. I'm sorry. The one who promised we'd be together forever left you alone with those memories. I'm sorry I still haven't remembered you. His hand hovered in the air. A few seconds later, it finally came down, wrapping firmly round my back. You don't need to apologize, he said softly. You didn't do anything wrong. I shook my head. I can't even imagine what it must feel like to be forgotten by the person you love. The cruelest part is this. He alone guarded every detail of our love, yet lost the right to continue loving. I looked up at him. I read the diary. I still have it remembered. It's okay, I covered his mouth. Listen to me. I don't remember, but that doesn't stop me from falling in love with you. Don't talk to me about freedom anymore. What do I need freedom for? I only want you. We promised forever. No one is allowed to break that promise. Thinking of the things he wrote in that diary sent a chill of fear through me. If I hadn't seen this notebook, we would have truly missed each other. I don't know how long we cried in the end. Ronan pulled me over to the sofa and sat me down, then pressed the box into my palm. Happy birthday. Only then did I realize he was crying too. His eyes were red, and clear tracks of tears ran down his face. I froze for a moment, then cursed myself inwardly. Even at a time like this, I thought he looked beautiful when he cried. I reached out to wipe his tears. He tilted his head slightly and said hoarsely, "Take a look. Do you like it?" Inside the plain wrapping was a custom-made agarwood bracelet. Ronan always used tricks like this to make it easy for me to accept his gifts. It was from a client. I don't like it. The size doesn't fit. It's an employee reward, cheap, clumsy. Yet I had never doubted him. If I hadn't read his diary this time, I don't know what excuse he would have used again. I slipped the bracelet onto my left wrist. My tears overflowed once more. Turns out, I really am a crybaby after all. Suddenly, a scene from the diary flashed through my mind. I grabbed his hand and dragged him toward the door. Where are we going? He stumbled as I pulled him along. To kiss under the sunset, I said. My voice was hoarse from crying, yet my resolve was unmistakable. Ronan lifted his eyes and gestured toward the window. It's raining, he said softly. There's no sunset. I wilted instantly, disappointment flooding my chest. My lips trembled, and I nearly cried again. He reached back to close the door, then leaned down toward me. His voice was so low only the two of us could hear it. Then let's do it here. Even though my memories still hadn't returned, the important things hadn't gone missing. After returning from the island, we terminated our leases, packed up, and moved into the villa. The speed of it all left Ronan both shocked and delighted. We started living together, every day. We were inseparable, so sweet it was almost cloying. One day, I brought home a puppy from an animal rescue center, Snow White, fluffy all over. That evening, when Ronan pushed the door open, the little thing immediately rushed over to greet him. Ronan bent down and scooped the fluff ball into his arms. Where did this puppy come from? He asked. Doesn't it look like Arctos? He froze for a few seconds, looked down at the dog, then looked at me. Then he pulled me into his arms and kissed me. It does. To commemorate Arctos, we named the puppy Kumar. 3 months later, as Kumar kept growing, I finally realized I'd been deceived. Arctos had been a Pomeranian. Kumar was a Samoyed, and judging from the expressions on Ronan's face and the butler's, it seemed I was the only one who thought the two were the same breed. Even so, I loved him all the same. Spring sunlight shone brightly outside the window. We sat around the dining table, eating together. Kumar lingered nearby, silently praying that a giant pork chop might fall from the table. The butler wiped the corners of his tear-damp eyes and sighed with emotion. The young master hasn't smiled like this in a long time, he said. Lately, I don't know what's gotten into him. He's always dizzy, always misplacing things. He looks for his phone while holding it in his hand, looks for his glasses while they're already on his face. Yesterday was the worst. He even mistyped important medical terminology in his papers. It was Ronan who happened to pass by and leaned down to delete the typos. Take a break, Ronan said. I leaned against him, breathing in the faint scent of lemon. Suddenly, panic welled up inside me. I was terrified that one day, I'd wake up again and forget him all over. Let's go abroad, I said quietly. Let's register our marriage, okay? He replied without hesitation, we'll leave tomorrow, one arm wrapped around my back. His other hand gently lifted my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze, no regrets. I hugged him back. If one day I forget you again, I said, just show me our marriage certificate. I'm very traditional, once it's stamped, I won't run away. The next day, we flew for 14 hours and landed in Las Vegas. Photos, signatures, fingerprints. The entire process took less than 10 minutes. I held that thin piece of paper in my hands, turning it over and over, reluctant to fold it away. After returning home, we went to the notary office to arrange advance guardianship. The process was complicated. The notary spoke with us separately, asking whether we were acting of our own free will. When we walked out of the building, the sunlight was blinding. I shook the little red booklet and the notarized documents in my hand. From now on, I said, your mind legally recognized. He lifted a hand to shield my eyes from the sun, then lowered his head and kissed me. In the days that followed, both Ronan and I were busy. He was busy making money. I was busy writing papers. Finally, after several months of effort, I completed my report. The moment I walked out of the conference hall, I received a call from Ronan. Sorry, Dennis, he said. A meeting came up at the last minute. I can't pick you up. It's fine, I replied. I'll take a taxi home, okay? I'll have Uncle Chen prepare dinner in advance. Let's celebrate properly. You've worked hard these days. Okay, I hung up, said goodbye to my colleagues, and hailed the taxi home. Just as the taxi turned a corner, a delivery motorcycle suddenly ran a red light. The driver slammed on the brakes, the car swerved and crashed into a buffer barrier. The airbag deployed, my forehead slammed hard into the window frame, buzzed. The world went silent. Then, countless fragments flooded back, and all at once the boy at the desk with red lips and white teeth. The boy I pestered with homework questions. The boy who froze after I kissed his cheek. And the boy who ran toward me with red eyes when he saw me lying on the ground. All the scenes played at once, rushing violently into my mind. I covered my forehead. Blood seeped between my fingers, and yet I laughed. After cooperating with the traffic police and stopping by a pharmacy to buy bandages, I headed home happily. Back at the villa, I pushed the door open and saw Ronan just about to head out to look for me. I'm back. He rushed over, grabbing me to check me from head to toe. What happened to your head? I smiled as I listened to his anxious rambling. Then I stepped forward, pressed my forehead against his chest, and repeated softly, Ronan. I said I'm back. He still didn't understand, so I said again, Ronan, you're so beautiful. Will you be my wifey? In the next second, his entire body went rigid. On that midsummer shore long ago, Dennis had seized the moment when Ronan wasn't paying attention and suddenly kissed the boy's cheek. Ronan, you're so beautiful. Will you be my wifey?